If you're like most people and you want to advance at work, you double down on being great at what you do. You be sure you're doing the job well. You dedicate yourself to excellence and you hone your skills. You take a class, you register for a program, you read a book, you listen to the podcast, you up your skills. And I have to say, if you're doing that, bravo to you. That kind of dedication demands respect. But what Richard Branson would say is that you're missing the boat. Now, he's a high school dropout, dropped out of school at 16. But of course, he's a multi-billionaire and he's been knighted. And from all appearances, he is having a great time in life, including in his work life. He attributes his success to his EQ, not his IQ. His EQ, his emotional quotient or emotional intelligence as we talk about it. And he has said it's his listening, it's his empathy, it's his understanding the emotions that are going on in the room, in meetings, in conversations, treating people a certain way that has been the driver of his success. And research backs this up. Research at Harvard has shown that teams with higher EQ outperform teams with higher IQ. Research at Columbia shows that the ROI you get on really working on your EQ far outweighs the ROI on getting smarter. At Yale, they found that people with higher EQ made dramatically better decisions. All in all, the research shows that improving your EQ far outweighs the benefits of working on getting smarter, getting better at what you do, if you're already, of course, doing really well at your role. So if you want to grow your success, if you want to advance in your career, you gotta double down on your people skills. But there are a lot of ways that people go wrong with their interpersonal skills. Let's look at the two biggest mistakes that people make. First, if you want to grow in your career, the research is clear. You got to double down on your EQ, on your emotional intelligence. And the biggest mistake that people make is mistaking hearing for listening. Listening is one of your most important tools in improving your relationships with other people and your interactions with other people. And yet people mistake hearing for listening. Hearing is passive. Hearing is, you're not really building any connection when you're hearing. You're not actively making an effort to pay attention, and therefore you don't get that human connection. Listening, on the other hand, is about attention, about intentionally paying attention and making an effort. And as a result, people build connections with other people just through that activity of really great listening. This is a career advancement indicator. And if you don't have great listening, it's a career advancement killer, because there's your boss experiencing you in meetings, hearing, but not really genuinely, actively listening and demonstrating that kind of listening. And so they're not going to trust you to go in to the executive team. They're not going to trust you to present to the board. They're not going to trust you to work with and meet with the top customers. And so you may keep your job, but you're going to stay where you are, just doing that same job that you've been doing. It seems so simple, doesn't it? Just listen. But it's really not. In my experience, most people are either so wrapped up in their own stuff that they're just barely hearing but not listening, or they don't know how to do it. And actually, most people don't know how to listen well and how to demonstrate their listening. Common knowledge, not necessarily common practice. And common knowledge is not necessarily common wisdom in terms of really having that wisdom, having that understanding of how to really do it well. Second, one of my clients got some feedback at work that she was lacking in empathy. And she said to me, but how can that be? How can they think that I don't have empathy? I mean, I'm a very social person. And therein lies the source of her feedback. You know, one of the biggest mistakes that people make in their wanting to be successful at work and growing in their careers is not doubling down on their interpersonal awareness and their interpersonal skills. These are some of the hardest skills to master, actually, because most of us interact from our reactions, or we assume that we know how to interact with people because we've been doing it for so many years, or we don't value it. We don't really see the value of it because we just kind of assume that we do it. But the research shows that this is Your EQ, your emotional intelligence, is one of the greatest predictors of career success. And in terms of being social versus being empathetic, they're totally different things. Being social means you can go to an event, you can go to a party, you can initiate conversation, you can interact well with people, but that does not mean that you're strong and skilled in empathy. Empathy is a very different thing. And if you're a leader, or if you want to move into leadership and you lack empathy, you got to look out. My client is a director. And she got there because she's smart. But now her lack of knowledge and ability to exercise and demonstrate empathy is stopping her. It's costing her. So to demonstrate empathy, you got to slow down. You got to get into their shoes. You got to stop trying to solve already and be human with them. Come alongside of them. Does not mean you need to agree with the other person. Not at all. And that's why empathy is a skill to be mastered, because it's that fine line. You don't have to agree. You could really disagree with them and still demonstrate genuine empathy. So if you want to advance in your career, take a page from Richard Branson's playbook and really think about your interpersonal awareness and your interpersonal skills. And rather than just looking at your technical skills, turn your focus to the interpersonal piece and ask yourself the big questions. Am I hearing people only, or am I actually listening and demonstrating that I'm really listening? And how's my empathy? It's not just about being social. It's about going deep. It's about coming alongside of someone, demonstrating that without having to demonstrate agreement. Take a look at those, brush up on those, increase your ability to be successful with those, and see the positive effect it has on the growth of your career.